Okay, so what we got here is just continuing from yesterday. We did sample proportions, right? And so a sample proportion is the number between 0 and 100. 0 and 1, that represents a group of people with a particular characteristic. So we'll get straight to the example. A sample of 100 students at Tennyson finds that 55 of them play Fortnite. Find the sample proportion. So for part A, P hat, that's the observed proportion, is 55 out of 100 or 0.55. Either would be absolutely fine to write. So that's what we were doing in yesterday's exercise, right? And we were doing some normal distribution calculations, provided it was sufficiently normal. What we're doing today is we're going to construct confidence intervals based off of these samples using the above formula. So because this is a sample, it's indicative of the population proportion, but not necessarily the population proportion. And so because it's indicative of the population proportion, we can calculate the 95% confidence interval using this formula here. So we'll go ahead and do that using the formula, and then we can also use the calculator, the setting of the calculator to do so as well. So all you're doing is putting in 0.55, 0.45 on top of the sample size was 100. All right. I'm going to write 4 figures and then round. Okay, so a couple of things to point out from this confidence interval. I think it wants us to interpret it as well, doesn't it? Interpret your answer, part C. So let's interpret first and then we'll talk about a couple of other things. So this is our answer to part B. So what does this mean? Based on our sample, we are 95% confident that the true proportion of people who play Fortnite at Tennyson Woods College is between 0.45 and 0.64. All right? Okay, so the first thing I want to point out, I'll let people write for a bit, there's a fair bit to write there. Okay, so 2 things I'll point out. The first is that this 1.96, that's for 95%, right? We learned that in previous exercise 9D, and we know that we can have other levels of confidence by changing this value. See the table, all right? And we should know how to calculate that number using the Z distribution, okay? And the second thing is we can use our calculator. We don't have to write all this syntax out every time we want to evaluate these figures. This is definitely the fastest way and the way that I encourage you to do it. So in menu statistics interval Z, And here you can go into sample confidence interval or proportion confidence interval. Okay, sample mean for when we're talking about continuous intervals, here binomial. So we go into the first proportion, and we've got x and n. X is the number of successes, n is the number of trials, so 55 out of 100. And then you've got your confidence level to put in there as well. All right, so that's exercise 9F.1. I reckon we just smash that and then do some folio. If you want, you can really work ahead. 9F2 and 9F3 are just going to follow suit from what we've been doing in 9D, but we'll just spend lessons on them in the coming next week. All right, any questions? Splendid, let's get into it.